Hello and welcome to Sports Opinion, the weekly sports talk show on Channel 18. My name's Dirk Keller. This is Bob Boyd.
Hello.
And this is our friend Jerry Mitchell. Jerry, welcome to Sports Opinion.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
It's
We
nice
call
to
him
be
Jerry
here.
the Bear.
Jerry Bear.
Yeah. It's on
as you
his
can-
license plate.
That's right. See that? Jerry Bear. Earl Murphy is on assignment scouting the Baylor Bears for the Hawkeye men's basketball
Awesome.
team. He'll be back next week.
Good.
Speaking of next week, we are going to have a very special guest, Brent Balbanot, who is the voice of Iowa women's basketball and Iowa men's baseball, is going to be our guest next week. He is going to help us take a look back at the Iowa women's basketball season and take a look forward at the Iowa men's baseball season. We'll talk
good.
more about baseball in a little bit. But we need to talk about Hawkeye men's basketball right now. That was fun
Wow.
last night. Wow.
Talk of the town, no
It
question.
really is.
What a way to finish the season. You know, we've had our ups and downs, and this is a pretty good team that, well, they're rewarding the fans and they're rewarding themselves, I think, at this time.
They really are.
They're playing really well.
I feel rewarded.
I do too.
Jerry, do you feel
Yeah.
rewarded?
Oh boy, I mean, it's hard to go to sleep last night.
yeah.
I was up till 2 a.m.
You know,
I couldn't sleep.
Turn on the radio after the game and listen to the end of that, and you just really pumped up.
Well, and the nice thing, too, I think, is the exposure we're getting nationally because Jerry and his wife, Patty, they just spent a month in Florida and saw the NIT games down there, right, Jerry?
Exactly.
I watched him down there too on spring
We were
break.
in,
An hour later, but you know what else you got
Yeah.
to do?
Yeah, and we were in North Carolina for a couple of weeks, my wife and I, and we caught a couple of the early games down there. And, you know, when you're that far away, it's pretty nice to see this
Oh.
team getting national exposure.
Really is.
You know, that's great for our recruiting. That's great for the kids. I think maybe it makes them play a little harder sometimes.
I think it does.
Yeah.
The Hawkeye men's team is 25-12, and if they win tomorrow night against the Baylor Bears, they will have the second largest win total in Iowa men's basketball history. 26. Only one team had more, and that was Tom Davis' first team at Iowa. The
Yes.
86-87 team won 30 games and lost 5.
That's right. That was one heck of a team.
Oh, it sure was.
Now, did one of Alford's teams with Horner and Herliska
Was it
and
205,
Bruner, did they,
207,
what did they win that
125?
one
They
year?
won 25. We are
Okay.
tied with them
For third.
for second. Well, yeah, depending on how you look at it. Right now, they are tied for the second most wins
Okay.
with that Alford team with Herliska and Bruner and Horner.
They got upset by
Northwestern State.
Yeah, that
The infamous 3 seed versus 14 seed.
Yeah, that was, I believe, when a great Indiana State was here, you know, and interviewed Greg Lansing, and that he talked about that. That was his last year.
That was his last
You know,
game.
he got
Yeah.
let go, whatever.
He got
But,
fired.
That,
He got thrown under the bus.
And the three-pointer in the corner at that, we all remember.
Oh, do we ever.
That was a good ball team too. That I think the Hawks could have gone somewhere that year.
Well, the thing of it was, they had help me out here, was it a 19-point lead, 16-point lead, something
Yeah,
like that?
something like that.
It close, yeah, exactly.
Big lead, late in the game. And we had, if you remember, On Media was having, cable TV, Mediacom was having technical difficulties. So we lost the game midway through the second half for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Had a big lead when we lost reception. When it came back, it was like a 5-point lead. And we were thinking, what the hell just happened? And then, boom, it all fell apart.
Something like the Nebraska this year with the Hawks. I mean,
Yes.
you know, you're talking about the 19-point, you know, the same scenario where just game went too long.
I got another one for you. You talk about the winningest team in Iowa history, the 30-5 Tom Davis team. We took our family skiing. It was spring break, 1987, March. And we were leaving that day to get back on Amtrak to come back to Iowa. We were at Winter Park in Colorado. And, you know, we're watching the game. We get to see the game before we leave. It was a night trip on the train.
Which game was it, Bob?
This was when we played Las Vegas. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
I was at that game.
And, didn't we have them by 19 points?
Had them by
in the first
19 at half.
Yeah, geez.
Everybody made at halftime. We all made plans to go to New Orleans.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And wasn't Las Vegas ranked number 1?
Yeah.
And they had that super team there for a couple of years, and we're thinking, boy, we're going to the Final Four.
We dominated them.
Oh, in the
It was the
second
perfect half.
they came out just hot as you could be, shooting them, dropping them from everywhere, and boy, that was a heartbreaker
Yeah.
to lose that.
Yeah, it was. Armin Gilliam, Jarvis Bass Knight, Jerry Tarkanian sucking on his towel.
Yeah, that's right.
Was Larry Johnson on that team?
Yeah.
And then the guy, the analyst, who's on one of the ESPN panel shows. I can't think of it. I've seen, but there was about 3 of those guys that
Johnson, Bass Knight.
unbelievable players.
It was a heck. Yeah.
Well, the infamous Tarkington, but you know what? He was also famous. He was famous for a great team, but he never had a player graduate
Yeah.
from Las Vegas.
Not some or most.
Can you imagine? Nobody.
I don't think that was the point of going to school there.
So, academics were not their strong suit.
You're
Kept him
coming,
eligible.
you're coming back on Amtrak.
Yes.
And what happened?
Well, we saw the end of the game before we left on Amtrak, but then we got to Denver from Winter Park. They had the biggest snowstorm of the winter, so we get stranded on the train at the train depot in Denver, which is about 3 hours from Winter Park by rail. So we slept on benches and everything in the train station, and we got back to Iowa about 24 hours late, and toilets were stuffed up, and you couldn't use them, and they ran out of food, and everybody was upset. So when we got off at the train station in Mount Pleasant, there were 2 families of us. So we had our 5 kids, and the other family had 3 kids, and we all got up and we lined up parallel to the train once we got our skis out and our bags. And I said, I want everybody to stand here in a line. So we get them in the line. I said, okay, I want you to kneel down right now and kiss the ground. So we all did it in unison, and in the train they were that was moving on further east.
I bet.
So we had a little fun with it.
I bet.
Yeah, but it was a train trip from hell, I'll tell you that.
Well, that Vegas-Iowa game was a train wreck from hell.
That was.
Second half. Just
That started
stunning.
our trip, losing that game. So.
Stunning.
Yeah.
Well, just got to say, this, and it's been said many times, I'd rather see the Hawkeyes get in the NIT and win 4 games, get to the championship, than get into the NCAA and lose one and done, or even win one and then lose one. These guys got 3 extra weeks of practice. They
Plus the experience of going to Madison Square Garden.
Exactly.
And
Which
the
is a-
paper this morning, Marble made the comment that not that many teams are playing right now.
Yes.
Yeah, there's only 4 others left.
Well, that's just it. Look at the exposure we're getting this week with the women's tournament and the Final Four for the men, and then there's Iowa and Baylor.
Yep. It's been really special. Let's just take a look back at this men's season. It's been up and down. They lost some early games to good teams like Wichita State in the Final Four. No shame in that.
They looked good against us. How little did we know that they were a pretty good club then, and they are now.
And we got humbled by Michigan on the road.
Yeah.
20-point loss, I believe.
30. Almost 30.
Was it almost 30? They're in the Final Four. And then you got the Hawkeye team, who was so close in so many games, especially road games. Especially games they had leads late in the game and then lost. At Minnesota, at Purdue, at Wisconsin in double overtime.
Nebraska.
At Nebraska. Huge lead at Nebraska.
Jeez,
We had a lead first conference game of the year versus Indiana at home. A team we should have beaten. A team we outplayed until the last 2 minutes. There were others.
And
Michigan State
right
here.
after.
And we should
Right
have
after.
beaten that Michigan State team. They should have beaten Michigan State in the Big Ten tournament. They had the lead most of the game. And they blew it.
Well, think of the 12 losses we have. You mentioned two Final Four teams.
Yeah.
You got Wichita State and Michigan. You lose twice to Michigan State, a top 10 team.
Yep.
That's 4 losses. You lose how many to Indiana? 2.
Twice.
That's 6 losses. You lose to Ohio State.
Once.
That's 7 out of their
Then
12 losses were to top 10 teams.
Yeah. And Wisconsin, NCAA.
And Wisconsin was
Yeah.
ranked about
Minnesota was
15th?
Minnesota was
Yeah.
early in the season ranked,
Yeah, they-
and certainly made the NCAA tournament. No shame in any of the losses. It's how they lost. But the real pride is in how they have overcome that. They got over that loss to Michigan State in the Big Ten tournament. I mean, that could have crushed a lot of teams. You know, it could have really sent them spiraling.
Well, I think the thing that we watched all season long in some of these close games where they had leads, these teams we were talking about, they couldn't close.
Yep.
They couldn't make their free throws. They couldn't make any threes, and they lost those leads. Now, one thing we've seen in the NIT, they've learned from that because they're closing these games out.
Yes.
When these teams make a run at them,
And they all made runs
Yeah.
at them.
That's right.
Boy, a couple last night
Yeah.
that were edge of your toe. But the thing, if you remember, in some of those losses, it seemed like there was about a 5-minute span in those.
Yes.
That we just couldn't make a basket.
Yep.
You know, but the last couple games, we've responded with a big shot.
Yep.
Going forward.
and making our free throws.
And making the
Oh,
free
boy,
throws. Big shot, and the guys making the big shots are all over the roster.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm gonna first off.
Yeah.
We know about Marble. Marble,
It's playing great.
he is. You know, I ran into Pat Hardy just before I came here,
Yeah.
and we had lunch over at Timmy Flynn's Red Pepper Deli and Grill. He said Devin Marble is right now playing better than any Hawkeye basketball player that he has seen here in Iowa City in his 22 years. And I
Oh,
said,
boy.
that's really impressive. There's a lot of good players. I mean, when you think about it,
Well, and you think of the when he was injured a little bit in the middle of the season, and
Yep.
we lost. You know, he wasn't there a stretch of about 4
we didn't
games
have
where
him
he
from
averaged,
Michigan State.
he averaged
We
3
didn't-
points.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was hurt.
He was hurt, and you know we lost some games in there, and that just goes to show you what a key cog in the wheel he is.
It does. He scored over 20 points all 4 NIT games.
Yep.
And here's another interesting little stat. The Hawkeyes have won each of the 4 NIT games by 10 points or more.
Yes.
Putting teams away
Pretty impressive.
At the end.
at the end.
Yeah.
Closing it out the way it should be, not with a bunch of fouls to try to keep it close and hope that you mess up. And even when they tried that, we made our free throws, and it put the game away anyhow.
You know, one thing I think too that has been pretty obvious to me, listening and watching these games, is I think their coaching staff is doing an excellent
Oh.
job with the way they're rotating their players
Agreed.
and keeping everybody fresh, and that's been even more obvious to me in the last 2 games against Virginia and Maryland. I think McCaffrey has done an excellent job with his players, because we've all talked about, we're all worried about next year. You've got all these players, and how you're going to give them time.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? If they can play half a game, if they can play 18 to 20 minutes to 22 minutes, all those guys, and you're winning,
Yeah.
they're going to be happy.
I was going to say, I think everybody'd be happy.
Yeah, and the fans will certainly be happy.
Well, we got one senior on this team, Eric May.
That's right.
Boy, is he playing well.
And he has stepped up. When I was having lunch with Pat Hardy, the sports writer for the Press Citizen newspaper, I suggested a topic line for him for a new article. I said, look at the last 3 years and what the lone senior has done at the end of the season.
Good point.
You got Eric May this year, who not only is hitting the big shots and getting the big rebounds and the big steals and leading his team on the floor, but he's setting an example for these younger kids. There are going to be a bunch of seniors next year, and they're going to know how to
Yeah.
act because Eric May told them to. I read an article that said Eric May makes sure that these kids show up on time for practice. Last summer, for the Primetime League, he made sure that those kids showed up on time, where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there. He did all the things that a leader does. You don't hear about that stuff in the post-game shows. Last year, we had Matt Gatens
Yep.
step up big time at the end of the season. And he got a nice run in the NIT for it, you know.
Boy, wouldn't it be nice to have Matt this year, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And Jared Cole, his senior year.
Yes.
Lone senior. And let's just talk about that. Jared Cole, Matt Gatens, and Eric May have all experienced the worst times ever to be a Hawkeye basketball player.
Yeah.
And Eric May in particular, his freshman year was the worst record in the history of Iowa basketball. 11 wins. Mm-hmm. That was Coach Licklider's last year. And then Eric May.
Cole was on that team as well.
That's right.
And Matt.
That's right. Eric May got hurt his sophomore year and his junior year. Bad back. I forget what it was his sophomore year.
Groin, I believe.
Groin, that's right. And that kid, he didn't tuck and run. He stood up. He has come up so big, not just this year, but down the stretch when it really counts. You know, the conference season, the conference tournament, and now the postseason tournament. Eric May has demonstrated to these younger kids what it means to be a senior leader.
Yeah.
And you're going to have several seniors next year, including Devin Marble, and Zach McCabe, who will know how to lead by example thanks to Eric May. What a way to end it.
And, if you notice, at least the last couple games, their top scorer, last night is going to be Wells. His defense on the individual, the last few games, they put him on. He unbelievable. He's all over the guy. And I was talking this morning with a guy, and I haven't seen the stats of minutes, but I'm not sure Eric May went out of the game last night.
He played 36 minutes.
No, 36. Because
Did he really?
seemed like
Yes.
Wow.
Now think about that.
He was always there and unbelievable.
Eric May wasn't even starting this year.
No, he didn't start until the last couple of games of the regular season?
When Gassell got hurt,
Gassell got
hurt.
it's when he began to start. I don't think he started when Marble got hurt. I think that was Basabe who
I think
started.
you're right, yeah.
Basabe's going to be a senior next year.
Yeah, we got those three.
Those three guys will be our seniors next year.
I cannot believe they're going to be gone already. But they're not gone yet.
I thought Melson, he started out strong last night. I thought playing back home close to Jersey and the New York area there, he'd have maybe be a bigger presence than he was, but he may be saving that for the Baylor game. But he's played well.
A little bit of foul trouble, and
He
there
was
a couple times
outsized
defensively that I think Coach McCaffrey was not happy, and he set him down and think about it. But speaking of the seniors and McCabe, he hasn't played a lot of minutes, but as he hit some big shots, Jack McCabe,
yes,
in the last 2 or 3 games, I mean,
he hit some more last night.
Yeah, that three in the corner. I think it was in the corner. Yeah, on the side there. So.
Well, Eric May hit that three to end the game. Put him up by 9 with a minute to go.
Well, and prior to that, he had a steal and a stop.
Yes.
In fact,
and he plays really good defense, and he's 6'5" and he can leap.
Yes. Yes, he can.
But you know what? If going into next year, you think about the win or lose against Baylor, certainly. We want to win that NIT championship because
Big time.
We've never won an NIT championship.
Nope.
We've never won an NCAA championship in basketball. And we haven't won a Big Ten regular season championship since 1979. So these guys are going to be contenders next year if they stay healthy.
And with that goes expectations.
You bet.
That's all right.
That's okay.
Your friend Pat Hardy will jump on that for going forward. But you mentioned it earlier, so one of you guys did, but the recruiting impact is what I see. That's still playing,
Yes.
I think the program is where can you get that blue chipper, that guy that's going to, you got 3 scholarships as such, and I think this is really going to help.
Fran had a kid there, a 2014 grad there last night.
And I read that from Brooklyn.
Yeah. I can't think of his name.
No, it started with C, and I can speculate. I read it this morning, but
But he had somebody there. Fran is always working. Always working.
He works real hard at recruiting.
Yes, he does.
And, boy, I'll tell you what, you can be a better coach if you get better players. So,
Kind of funny how that works.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. So.
Genius.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a really neat opportunity, he and his staff, to extend this season an extra 3 weeks or more. But more importantly, these guys get to stay together, play together, and I think that it's all coming together finally. It took this long for the light to go on or for things to just click, and it's clicked
Yeah.
here. Now, they get to go this summer, including Peter Jock.
So, yeah.
Where are they going? It's
It's Europe.
It's somewhere in Europe.
It's Europe.
You
and-
can go to Europe, I believe,
Every 4 years.
Every 4 years.
Yep.
This is when they can go.
So Peter Jock gets to go. If Eric May wants to go, he gets to go.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
he does?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So any of you've got Utah that'll be
Yeah.
going, and you have Myers, the
Yep.
redshirt kid
Right.
from Atlanta.
6'10"
Yeah.
kid with a 3-point touch.
Oh,
Nobody
boy.
knows about Myers
Do we
yet.
need that?
It's, this team next year, I don't know how they're going to spread the minutes. Peter Jock is going to, he's going to vie for playing time right away. This kid is a big-time point guard, shooting guard combo. The kid from Des Moines. He's going to be something special.
But having this
He
kind of
might
depth,
be not quite as good as Marble yet, but probably a better shooter.
Better shooter right out of the gates.
Better outside
You
shot.
got Jared Utoff, who came, by way of Wisconsin, by way of Cedar Rapids. Where'd he go to high school?
He went to
See Jeff?
he went to Jeff.
Yeah. This kid can shoot, and he's big. He's rangy.
6'8".
Yep. And he's going to be a real added threat. And then you throw in Myers, who nobody has seen. I've seen his video from high school, and the kid gets up and down the floor for 6'10", and he can shoot. He can handle the ball. I don't know where they're going to put everybody.
He looks like the odd man out talking now, but you're talking about what you've seen and going
Yeah.
forward. Maybe he won't be the odd man out.
They're going to be 10 strong, easy, maybe
Easy.
more.
Well, there's two places this really helps you. First of all, every day in practice,
Yep.
you've got a lot of quality players that can start, and they're pushing each other,
Yeah.
and that makes you better right there. But the other part of it is the Hawkeyes, even right now, but going forward to next year, all these games are about matchups. He can start different lineups and
Yeah.
match up with anybody with the depth that he has. On
No
his
kidding.
team.
I hope everybody sticks around. Nobody
Yeah.
transfers
Yeah.
out.
That could happen.
It-
Played 10 guys last night. One's leaving, so you got 9, and they had 3. That's 12. And
Yeah.
like you say, if they all stay,
Yeah.
it's a nice problem to have.
Let's hope. Let's hope. The Hawkeyes are going to also, after this summer tour to Europe,
Yeah.
they start the regular season in the Great Alaska Shootout. Which
Great
is
tournament.
a great tournament. Tremendous quality teams in this tournament. And you don't have any other distractions in Alaska. You're there to play hoops, and that's it.
But you know who else started out in the Alaska shootout?
86, 87 team.
The Tom Davis first team. They
Yeah.
went out there and won that.
Won it.
And
And beat
surprised
some
everybody.
real good teams
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
So this team is poised for greatness. It's taken a while this season. It's taken a while, but better late than never. That's what my dad always
You better
said.
Oh,
be,
yeah.
you better be better late than never at the end.
That's right.
Well, we deserve it because we went through Licklider and Alford before we got the guy that's a good fit here.
We're going to talk about Coach Alford here in a minute.
Okay.
But before we do, I want to remind everybody the Hawkeyes will play for the NIT Championship tomorrow night, Thursday, at 8 p.m. Not 8:30, 8 p.m. on ESPN. So everybody can get it that has cable or dish or anything
Yeah.
like that. I am so happy. I'm just giddy. Jerry said it earlier. I had a hard time getting to sleep last night, and I had a hard time getting the kids down. The 8-year-old wants to stay up and watch.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I let her watch until halftime.
Sure, you got to.
Well, that was after she snuck down.
Oh, I see.
You can't keep a good Hawk down. And I
No,
wasn't
you
gonna,
can't.
she's a Hawkeye fan,
Yeah.
and she likes basketball.
But she'll remember sneaking down, and you let
Yep.
her stay till
So a
halftime.
lot of parents had problems last night.
Oh, man.
And you were talking before the show started, Dirk, that if they win the NIT and finish the season 26-12,
Yep.
that will be the second most victories
Ever.
ever of any Hawkeye team.
Mm-hmm.
That's another plus.
It really is.
And even now at 25, they're tied at what? With
They're tied with that Haluska, Bruner, or Horner
205,
team.
206, or something like that.
yeah, 06, was that when it was, Jerry?
I think
Probably,
I
yeah.
read on
Th-
that.
This has just been so much fun.
Yeah.
Every game, the 2 home games, I was on spring break, so I didn't get to participate, but we got to watch it on TV, me and the kids down in Florida, and it was so much fun.
Well, and it makes you excited no matter win or lose at the NIT final. It makes you excited going into next season for sure.
Well, and the program has embraced so many new fans who don't normally get to afford season tickets
Yes.
or single game tickets or have conflicts, whatever. That Carver Hawkeye was packed both nights for both initial home games in the NIT tournament. And
At spring break.
yeah, at spring break, the first game, well, both games, they
Yeah.
sold out. You know,
Yeah.
you get 2 days' notice, 48 hours, boom, 15,500 and some tickets gone, and they were sold to people who really wanted to be there. This wasn't something that they inherited from their parents or their grandparents. This wasn't a business trip or anything like that. These are people that wanted to be there.
Yep.
And they made noise, and they brought life into that arena that you just don't normally see. It was that way last year in the NIT.
That first
here.
game, yeah.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
electric. Was it Dayton we played?
I think it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we played Dayton before
Yeah.
we went to Oregon.
And they
Yeah.
were a higher seeded team. In fact, they were a more talented team than Iowa.
Yeah.
And Matt Gatens just took that team on his shoulders and carried them right to the end. I'll never forget watching him walk off that court for the last time. And I watched Eric May do that again
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
the Stony Brook game. That was a very good Stony Brook team they beat at home. And honestly, I didn't have very high expectations for the game at Virginia. I went into it and said, if they win, great. I don't expect them to. We haven't been a road team all year. And look what they did out there.
I think we were all kind of thinking that way, probably.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm
Did
just
they have
being
18
honest.
in a row? Was it 18 in a row going in?
They had won 19 in a row at
19 in a
home.
row at home.
And beating Duke and
Yep.
everybody else,
Now, didn't this Maryland team we beat last night? Didn't they beat Duke twice?
Twice. Once
Did
at
you?
home and once in the postseason conference tournament.
Yeah.
They beat a lot of good teams this year. They beat North Carolina at home. They were a lot, Maryland was a lot like Iowa. They didn't do so well on the road, didn't really reach the expectations they had. A young team, big 7'1" center who, had some good games, some not so good games. Inconsistency was maybe their hallmark. And I think it's fair to say that up until the postseason, that was our Hawkeye team. Inconsistent on the road, and a lot of room for growth and improvement. And now we're seeing it.
Both Virginia and Maryland were pretty much like
Yep.
that in the Hawkeye team. Yeah.
Yeah. And that Maryland team, boy, they were good. That big guy,
their center, you could
Landon.
see where he could really dominate at times. I mean, he really moved around.
And they say he's going to the NBA, won't be coming back.
Did he impress you that much?
Yes.
That he's,
Well,
Yes.
you could see it.
he's a lottery?
Yeah.
You could
Okay.
see it.
Oh, I don't know about, no.
They were talking about that on the radio, and I'm
I don't know
thinking
about lottery. But maybe, I don't know.
first rounder, I guess. Maybe.
He sure could be. He has the physicality, the length,
Yeah.
Yeah.
long arms, muscular, but he's got what it takes upstairs. I thought first half especially, he just took Woodbury to the shed and spanked him physically, or not physically, but
Yeah.
mentally. He just knew how to get around guys and score. The problem was the head coach Turgeon didn't get the ball to him.
Yeah.
I mean,
It looked like he could have handled a little bit more. I mean,
Yeah.
they were.
Then he had 6 or 7 blocks too, didn't he? On defense.
6 or 7, I forget
Yeah.
which.
We kept trying to challenge him, but it was
We didn't have an answer for him. And then somewhere there in the second half, Turgeon took him out, and he sat for like 5 clock minutes until he came back in. And then it really didn't. They fed him the ball right away. Boom, score, foul, plus the free throw. And then after that, not much.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah, we did not. We just didn't have an answer for him. Basabi got out-muscled. Woodbury just didn't, quite frankly, have a clue on how to deal with him. Kid was too quick.
And he used his body a little bit, which they can get by if they kind of bumping in a little bit.
Yep.
Woodbury, like you say, a little inexperience, and in fact, there was one time that he did that and then went over the top to get a rebound. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I do.
Friend at the other end was very hot. I'm sure that was, from their point of view, went over the top, and the underneath the facial, it's tough, but the outside of facials, he should be hoping that the guy goes over his back and should some help. It should look like it on TV, but it was no call.
Speaking of officials, did you notice who one of the officials was?
Burr?
Jim Burr.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
The
Right
same
away.
Big Ten referee who put the ball in play while his two referee teammate, whatever you call them, his two fellow refs from the crew were still at the scorer's table reviewing a play. This guy's clueless. There was a play where Len, the big stud from Maryland, had the ball near the paint, down low, with two Hawkeyes on it. He dribbles, tries to shimmy and shake and get around him, gets a hand on the ball. He picks up the ball and then dribbles again.
Oh, the double dribble.
The whole place was going nuts, including Fran.
And everybody missed it, except the fans.
Jim Burr didn't. He didn't catch it.
Isn't he an East Coast official? I
don't know.
I thought he was, because unlike you, when I first spotted him, and I said, not knowing the other two
How does he
guys.
get this
Yeah, I don't
assignment?
know.
He's terrible. He's not young enough to keep up with these guys.
Well, that's another thing. The last couple of years, he's been right at Hawkeye Carver, and it looked like he's like a step behind the play.
Yeah.
And you have to appreciate this, but he looks like Norm Parker, the recently
does he?
retired Hawkeye football defensive
a little
coordinator.
shorter,
Yeah, with better legs, but barely. I just couldn't believe I saw Jim Burr out there
I was very
last night.
surprised, because you'd think not that many guys are working right now, and you should be able to get
The best.
Should be the best officials working now.
And I don't know who.
Should be.
I don't know if the other two refs were Big Ten refs or not. I didn't recognize them.
The previous game against Baylor, the white-haired official had in the Big Ten. The other four, I didn't really remember seeing very much.
Well, they had a black ref in our game who was very demonstrative and was really into waving the arms and pointing at somebody if they fouled or did anything, even if the ball just glanced off you.
Yeah.
He's got to come out and make big gestures.
Make a big deal
If you're not a great official, at least look like.
Yeah, no kidding, Jerry. I
Well,
told
at least
my
you knew
son-
what he was calling, though.
That's for sure. But if you're a player and you got this ref doing that stuff, you really become uncomfortable. I mean, come on.
Like Hightower.
Yeah, this guy was even.
I'm the show.
Yeah, he was over the top of Hightower even.
Oh boy.
It was bad. I just don't like that. I think the referees, the umpires, whatever, should blend into the background. They should not be.
You don't want to
noticeable. Yeah.
Jerry's an old official.
Are you?
Once you've done that, you observe more than probably the normal guy. You kind of look at what they're doing, or maybe a call. You're trying to say, man, if I'd have called that, it might have been something else. So you kind of get into that mindset a little bit. Sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's bad that you get in that mindset. But we could talk about officiating a lot, but it was, one of the earlier games, the first half was the Michigan State game, I guess, that we all kind of got upset about, and Steve Kerr made that comment on the next day or something about Iowa won the basketball game, but Michigan State won the football game. So, you kind of go back to some of that scenario.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, you just got to
find a way to win.
I didn't get to see that Michigan State game in the Big Ten tournament. I was driving to spring break.
It's probably better that you didn't. It was.
I didn't.
I listened to it.
Yeah, it was really it was a rough game, and Iowa was.
Was it one-sided?
Kind of. Well, like I say, when the TV announcers say something, we can say something as fans. Everybody complains about the officials, but when I observe, and they're talking about something that how could they, on a replay, how could you not see that? Then you kind of take notice a little bit.
Yeah, true.
That's too bad. Well, the officiating in the Big Ten, I feel, has to get better. But what are we going to do about it? So let me ask you guys this. Fran McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
Does he get an extension and an increase in pay?
Yeah, but I let me think. What was his initial contract? you know?
I want to
Was
say
it 5 years
I'm
or
just thinking
6?
where he's at.
I think it's 7 years.
Is it?
7 years and 1.2 or something.
I'm going to say it sounds about 1 point.
7 year, 1.2. This is year 3.
Well, here's my theory on all these contracts.
Yeah.
You sign a contract for a reason, huh? A la Steve Alford.
Yeah.
You sign a contract for a reason. I don't think any of them need to be revisited until a year or two out of the whatever the extent of the contract.
What about recruiting?
Well, that's an issue. I mean, a lot of these coaches, whether it be football or basketball, they have a rolling 5-year contract.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's not a bad idea.
Well, in some of these contracts, if you get to, of course, I'm just using this for example, you get to the final of the NIT, is that, you know what I mean?
I wonder.
You get someplace, there's always incentives along
Yeah.
the step. Now, I have no idea, but you just feel like he should probably get something here.
I think he deserves something.
It might be it wouldn't be a large incentive as coaches in contracts. It might be NIT. You might get 25,000 or something like that. But even some of Kirk Ferentz's deals in his contract incentives are not as big as you might think they would be. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, I'd like to see a lower base and more incentives, but that's not how most of these are written.
No. I
Does he
personally.
deserve an extension
Yeah.
and a little more money? I would say yes.
What do you think, Jerry?
Well, you know, it's you can say yes or say no. I just see some of these contracts, no matter what sport it is, you get out there too far, and then things don't go too well, and you're stuck in the middle. I think he deserves something, but how much we could talk about for a long time.
I will tell you this: I wouldn't give anybody a 10-year contract,
No.
and that's
Well.
seemingly the norm. You know, I mean, with Alford and with Fred Hoiberg now over in Ames, got a 10-year contract. Just signed a 10-year contract with the fellow over in northern Iowa.
Yeah, that's right.
Jacobson.
You know, I think that's, we had one here in a 10-year extension for Ferentz a few years ago that takes him to 2020. I wouldn't sign my mother to a 10-year contract.
Yes,
I
you
just-
would.
I just think that's too far out, you know?
You better
That's
sign
my
your mom
personal
to a
opinion.
10-year.
But doesn't really matter what I think, you know? Well, how do you guys feel about that?
I agree with the 10-year thing. I still think Fran's going to get an extension and an increase.
And that's okay.
Deservedly so.
Yeah,
Give him a couple more years, give him a couple more dollars, say thanks, good job,
yeah,
and we'll revisit again next year after the NCAA tourney run.
yeah.
I'm going to say it again. This NIT run has been wonderful. It's the most excited I think any of us have been about Hawkeye basketball since Steve Alford was here, for sure. And I don't know what year, Big Ten Conference or Big Ten Tournament title, I
Two
guess.
tournament titles he won.
That was really exciting
Yeah.
like this, but it was all compact into 4 days straight.
Yeah.
And make no mistake, that was really fun. I'll never forget where I was for those games. But this has been a lot of fun, and we get to digest it, enjoy it, talk about it like we are today. And it's, you know.
But even that second one, Dirk, was 7 years ago.
That's right.
That's a long time when you went through Licklider and, you know, since then, and
Yep.
4 losing seasons in a row, 3 by him and 1 by Fran when he inherited, you know, not a lot of players when he came here. And, boy, he's turned it around.
The Big Ten Network guys last night were saying that Fran and his staff are ahead. They're about a year ahead of where they thought they would be at this point. What do you think?
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I think
that's probably
his
pretty
staff,
accurate.
those 4 guys, you could put them on paper. That's as good as basketball staff that you could
Really is.
put together. He put together
Yes.
3, 3 guys that are recruiting. It's unbelievable staff.
They all work hard. And
They
they're-
do.
They're all nice fellows, too.
I think they've accomplished everything they set out to be. I don't think they're ahead of where they thought they would be. They're about where I had hoped they would be. And again, NIT, I don't care. You're not under the big spotlight like the NCAA.
We were hoping to make the NCAA, but we were a bubble team. We understand
Yeah,
that
this is
year,
a better deal.
It's turned out to be a better deal for their growth.
Yeah. I would have said that, though, even after the 2 home wins in the NIT
Yeah,
and say a loss to Virginia. I would have said that then.
probably. I would too.
It was just a better experience, but they didn't
Winning's
lose.
more fun, isn't it?
Oh, it's a good time. It's a good time.
Yeah.
And now we're going to switch gears. We about
All right.
talked Iowa men's basketball to death. We will remind you, tomorrow night, Thursday, 8 p.m., ESPN, Hawks versus the Baylor Bears. I will say, I watched Baylor. I watched them before the game, and I watched them again after the Iowa game when I couldn't sleep. Their point guard, Pierre Jackson, woo, NBA.
Yeah, they play a little street basketball at times. Their point guard, they
Fast.
get it out with it. They'll let it go from downtown, but
Yep.
very, very athletic and very talented.
They got a big guy whose name escapes me who is just monstrous. Long arms, athletic, leaping ability. He's going to be a handful.
Yeah.
They're going to be a handful. I think you're going to see a lot of Clemens on Pierre Jackson because I don't see how Gazelle can stay with him.
Well, and you're probably a little small and quick for Eric May. You don't.
Oh, yeah.
You think somebody else, like you say, a Clemens type guy.
Yep, and maybe Ingram.
We played a lot of 2-3 zone.
That
That was
defense.
working for us
Oh, it
against
was.
Maryland. And, that's the other thing. We've just played so much better defense this year.
Yep.
And it's been pretty obvious in this NIT.
Yep.
And that's very responsible for our wins as well.
Really is. And I think it's what got us leads on the road in the Big Ten Conference.
Yeah.
That defense is well coached, and I think the defense is starting to click in the heads of these players. They finally get where they're supposed to be, whether it's a man-to-man or a zone. I was really impressed, each and every one of them.
Well, last
this
night-
whole NIT.
It got down to we were only ahead by 4 or 5 when they were coming back.
Yep.
And we had 5 stops in a row
Yep,
on their offense. And that changed the momentum
it was great.
back to our side.
Still can't get over it. We're all giddy,
Yeah.
happy as little schoolgirls here.
How would you like to be the Rutgers coach?
I would not like to be Coach Rice at Rutgers because I would no longer be the coach at Rutgers. He got fired today, rightfully so. Bob, you can't see, so you're not able to fully appreciate the video that has been released.
Oh, man.
I watched that.
Heard everybody talking about it.
Unbelievable. I can't believe one of these players didn't punch him.
Well, how did he keep his job to begin with when this wasn't this exposed 2 years ago?
Well,
I mean, that's when the video was taken, right?
I don't-
Wasn't it 2011?
I don't know if it was 2 years ago, but at the beginning of the season, he was suspended this year for 3 games.
And $50,000 fine.
$50,000. The athletic, as far as I'm concerned, the athletic director needs to be fired. He's gutless.
This coach should have been gone immediately.
Oh yeah, it's brutal. It's one thing to say the hateful things he did. He's calling them faggot and making fun of their ancestry, or he had a couple of international players and ridiculing them for the way they spoke or their homeland.
Oh, boy.
But he was throwing basketballs at people's heads. He was hitting these guys, shoving these guys, grabbing, not necessarily choking, but going after their throat.
Wow.
Didn't
Yeah,
the
Joe.
athletic director not renew the contract of the advisor to the students?
Oh yeah, that's how this all came
That's the
about.
worst
Was
part.
not an advisor. He was an assistant coach who was a whistleblower and went to the athletic director,
Yeah.
and they just didn't renew his contract because those guys are year to year, and so the guy sued Rutgers. He's suing Rutgers. He's suing the athletic director. I don't know if he's suing Rice, the coach, but he
He'll
is the
win,
one.
too.
Oh, I think he
That'll
will.
be settled out of court.
The video is shocking.
Oh, yeah.
And it's got everybody talking. It's like Bob Knight when he choked his player or players.
Yeah.
But this is over and over and over and punching and hitting guys in the back of the head when they got their back turned to you.
Wow.
I mean, he clearly has anger issues. And the fact that, here's what really baffled me. I don't know if you read any of the, well, somebody did an interview with 6 of the players who said, I have no problem with the way he coaches.
I didn't see that.
Is that right?
Yeah. But there was another
Wow.
kid who was a foreign exchange transfer who quit the team after 1 year and said it's because of him. I've never been
Yeah.
treated that way. It's
Yeah.
detrimental. It tears people down. There's no no
Is there only
positive
one
benefits.
kid that quit then, or
If
transferred?
I read it, well, no.
Okay.
But there's just the one kid who is quoted as saying it's because of him. There were other kids who transferred who said it really wasn't because of him. Situations, I don't have any problem with that. I've been coached like that in North Carolina, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
I don't care where you're from or where you've been, but you don't lay your hands on people. I saw an online discussion last night, and somebody compared it to military basic training, and boy, did that send up a bunch of red flags, because a bunch of military personnel came online and said, I've been in the military 20 years, and not once has anybody laid a hand on me. And nobody's kicked me, nobody's thrown anything at my head, nobody's done any of that stuff. And nobody has called me faggot or made fun of my ancestry or any of this other stuff.
Well, at least Rutgers finally stepped up to the plate and fired this guy.
That's
today.
because the social media world is
That's
so
right.
powerful.
That's
Pressure
right.
had to be getting
This
real tight.
athletic director yesterday said, we're going to stand by him, we're going to make changes, he's a good man, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, you need to be fired, athletic director. And then boom, this morning the coach is gone, and I suspect the athletic director will be gone.
Well,
They're heading into the Big Ten. You can't have that kind of baggage going into the Big Ten a year from now.
Well, it's a state school,
Yep,
and Chris Christie, the governor of New Jersey,
yep. He criticized.
came down on the whole situation, and I'm sure you would think the president of the university is they're probably both responding and saying, you know what, this is what you got to do.
That was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad. I'll tell you what else is bad. Steve Alford's first press conference at UCLA. Oh, was that brutal. Second question.
Yes.
Second question. How would John Wooden have handled the Pierre Pierce situation the same way you did?
Ooh.
Oh!
He sidestepped a little bit, saying that he followed the guidelines of the University of Iowa.
I did what they told me to do. Well, that's what you want your leaders to do, is to do what other people tell them.
Well, and that, we all know about the Pierre Pierce situation, but it was a tough thing for him to have to handle, but it's a pretty unfair question, too, don't you think? I mean, that's
I'm biased.
10 years ago.
I'm
Well,
prejudiced.
we all think Pierre Pierce should have been gone initially, I think.
Yep.
You talk to any Iowa fans, and especially if you talk to female Iowa fans, why is he playing for Iowa?
Yep.
And that changed that a lot of people stopped going.
That was it. Women stopped going. Other people stopped going. I think if you ask our friend Pat White, who was the Johnson County county attorney at the
that
time,
yeah.
he will tell you that Coach Alford's remarks to the media about his confidence that Pierre Pierce is completely innocent was very detrimental. It doesn't sound like a big deal on the surface, but it's really hard to get a fair trial when one side is already declaring, innocence. And
Oh, boy.
the fact that he took the Fellowship of Christian Athlete leader to let's be honest, this was a woman's basketball player, one of Lisa Bluter's players that was involved with Pierre Pierce. It was a bad deal, and I think if you asked our friend Lisa Bluter, she might have a different opinion of Coach Alford and how he handled that whole situation.
I'm certain that's true.
Yeah, and so there are a lot of different reasons for people to be upset with Coach Alford. I don't think it was an unfair question because Coach Alford had just used John Wooden as his example, how he followed or admired him, having been an Indiana boy himself, as John Wooden was. And of course, who doesn't admire what John Wooden accomplished and how he did it?
Well, he could have asked another John Wooden question. Would John Wooden have signed a 10-year contract and walked away from it the next day? That might have been.
Yeah, I mean, how do you do that? How do you do that?
I mean, you say that this is the place that I want to be for the next 10 years, great fans, everything going
$2 million a
forward.
year.
And
10-year contract. Wow.
And I don't know if you heard about this, but there was a clause in his contract that until April 1st, the buyout was $150,000, or maybe the contract
200, wasn't it?
$200,000.
$200,000.
After April 1st, it was $1 million.
Ooh.
Which if you're an agent, that's a really smart thing to do, because right now, that's when all the coaching changes occurred.
Yes.
After all the other good teams get beat, like Florida Gulf Coast, all those teams get beat, their coaches rise to the the level of the
He
sea.
had 5 or 6 days to play the field.
Yep.
And he came on Saturday, March 30th, is when it was announced he was taking the job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I happened to catch Dick Vitale in response to Alford
Haven't heard of this.
taking the UCLA job. And of course, Alford's response when he was being at the news conference was, this is one of the premier college basketball schools in the country. And that was also said on, by ESPN people and all the talking heads. And so Dick Vitale, I'm going to do a Dick Vitale imitation
All right.
here. So Dickie V gets on there, they get him on there, and Vitale goes, "Premier job, what are you talking about? Steve Lavin, he coached there for 7 years, took him to 5 NCAA tournaments. What do? Premier job,
Fired him.
Then they hire Ben Howland from Pittsburgh, 10 years, 10-year contract, takes him to 3 Final Fours, wins a Pac-10, Pac-12 championship this year. Premier job, huh? What do?
Fire him.
Hey, I'll tell you what the premier programs are in the United States. They're North Carolina, they're Kansas, they're Syracuse, they're Florida, they're Myshishevsky and the Dukies. Those are the premier jobs in America. It ain't UCLA anymore. That's past tense. Steve Alford.
Good for him and good for you, Bob. That was
Hey,
really good.
Hey, Jason,
God.
he might be,
Hey.
Vitale was funny. I mean, he just came out of
That
the
is
blue
good.
and
he
basically
might get a call from ESPN tonight.
he shot down UCLA and
But
that
you know,
little,
talking about Alford, it was last night. I think it was
Yeah.
halftime. The commentators was talking about, Alford going to UCLA, and also talking about Craig Neal, the
Yeah.
#1 assistant that a lot of people think is really the main reason Steve maybe got a little better.
He
And
was their main recruiting
Yeah, and he
guru.
got the New Mexico
And a good
job,
coach.
and they were talking about recruiting that Alford has. The last couple of years, got some California boys,
Yep.
and the guy said that is good, but Mr. Neal has been responsible for most of
I
those
heard
players.
that.
So
Yeah.
it was kind of interesting that he said that.
I was glad they said that, and I think Craig Neal's going to be a perfect fit for New Mexico.
it's a great opportunity for Craig Neal.
I think Steve Alford's going to be a huge failure at UCLA.
See who he gets to help him.
Well, he signed a 7-year contract, and we'll see how that works out. But, I for one think Steve Alford is a pretty good basketball coach. I think the thing that hurts him is, it hurt him here anyway, is how he handled himself in the community and his personality. But, he's done pretty well, winning and losing where he's been. Even here, he was here for 8 years, won 152 games, I think. That's about a 19-12 run per season, 19-13 average. But, he had one losing season his first year. And as you recall, he didn't inherit a lot.
No, he didn't.
And he beat Connecticut, the defending national champs, in his first game.
First game.
I think they finished 14-16 that year,
Yeah.
or 15-16, something like that. But, he's going to have his hands full. I mean, you talk about exposure out there, they're going to be bloodhounds of media out there if you
Well,
don't win at UCLA.
There's already blood in the water. They aren't going to let the Pierre Pierce situation die. They will not let it die. And he didn't handle it well the other day in his news conference. He said a whole lot of nothing, which, we're kind of used to here
Yeah.
with Coach Ferentz, because he doesn't say a whole lot of anything in his news conferences. But
What about his two sons? Isn't there one on the team that redshirted
one is
this
a
year at New
walk-on.
Mexico?
Yeah, he's a walk-on.
Okay.
And then Bryce is the high school senior, who I've seen some video of, and he is pretty
I saw
outstanding.
the same video. He averaged 37 points something
Yeah.
this
Wow.
last year.
Yeah, they didn't even make it to the Final Four of the New Mexico Big School State Tournament, but had a good record, and he's going to be an excellent player.
Is he going to go to UCLA with his dad?
Yes. Oh, yeah. He's
He
already
has
said
signed
that. Yeah.
with New Mexico. He's
Waiting for the release.
processed for the release.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting. He's going to have the 6'3" freshman come in. His other son is a 6'4" walk-on, redshirted. He's going to go with him. So, you go to a new place and you have two of your own sons in the mix. He's got to be at work.
It's, again, the spotlight, the microscope. I don't think Steve Alford is prepared or equipped to handle not being top dog in the market. Look, he was top dog here. In New Mexico,
Oh, yeah.
he was top dog.
Top dog, yeah.
Before us at Southwest Missouri, top dog. UCLA, LA, no way.
Yeah, you're right. He's been top dog everywhere he's been,
And he's never
including
had.
his high school and college career.
That's right. He's been put on a
Yeah.
pedestal. And out here in LA, they're going to do everything they can to tear him down because that's what major market media people do. That's what the LA people do. It's a professional market. It's not a college market.
Yeah.
It's a pro market. And we saw exactly what he's up against. Second question out of his introductory news conference. They just ambushed him. Fair, not fair? I think it's fair because he has to answer for it. He's never had to answer for how he handled Pierre Pierce's law breaking, how he made a lot of bad mistakes in how he handled it. And Bob, I think you said it earlier, if he would have just, I think it was you, maybe it was Pat Hardy. I think it was Pat Hardy said, first press conference, the guy ambushes him like that. If he would have just been honest and said, that was 8-10 years ago. I was younger. I've learned a lot since then. I made some mistakes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it the same way. I doubt John wouldn't either. And I'm just
Yeah.
glad that we're past that and hope we never have to live through it again.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would have been
Instead,
better.
that'd have been
he's
better.
up there talking about
Yeah.
me. We've done this. We've done that. I did what I was told.
Yeah.
He loves to take credit for things. And he did that in this news conference. He took credit for all that has gone on at New Mexico. And then I think he kind of, he tried to throw Iowa, the University of Iowa, under the bus, as the phrase goes, with his comments, I did everything they told me to do. So there are a lot of people, it's clear, a lot of people here in Iowa City still have very strong feelings about him, whether it's for his character or the personality that we ran into on the streets here and there. A lot of people don't like him, and it's a shame. We supported him here on Sports Opinion. We didn't like all the rumors that were being spread about him that we know weren't true, that continue to dog him to this day. But what we do know is true is the personality and the character. And he has to own up to that someday. I think it's going to be real tough for Coach Alford out at UCLA. Holy cow. I can't see Tanya fitting in out there either. It's just
It'll
not
be
her world.
Be a tough deal.
She's a good person.
Yeah.
I got to know her pretty well when they were here in Iowa City, and I truly think she's a good person. We had his dad, Sam, on the show.
Great guy.
Great
Sam's
guy.
a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of those people. That
Well,
we
it's
just
going to
knew-
be interesting to watch the next 5 years
Yep.
for sure.
We're about out of time, but we want to mention that the Iowa baseball team has begun their home season. They had a big win over Western Illinois last night.
Yeah.
They'd gotten out of the gates kind of slow in the Big Ten Conference. They're 1-5 in the conference. Overall, they have a 9-13 record. They're 0-3 at home, and they've got a bunch of home games coming up here. Starting on May 5th, that's Friday, Nebraska's in town for 3 games. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then right after that, Kansas
say
is in town
May
for
5th
2
or
games.
April 5th?
April 5th, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
okay.
I did say May. Kansas in town on the 9th and 10th for 2. Then next weekend, Kansas State is in town. So get out. The weather's going to be great this weekend. Get out there and support the baseball team. They need the help. You can't beat a good time at the old ballpark. We're going to have to wrap this up. On behalf of my friend Bob Boyd, on behalf of Jerry Mitchell, thanks again for being here. I'm Dirk Keller, thanking you for watching Sports Opinion every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. on Channel 18, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. And you can always get it on my Facebook page or go to PATV, Joe.tv. Too late, out of time. Remember this, either you're a Hawk or you're not. Beat the Baylor Bears.
Amen.
Go Hawks.
Yeah.